Glad we were able to get this going. Do we have everybody here? I don't see Dave Platt or Micah.
I do not have them yet.
Okay, and Mark is not there yet?
Councilors. Looks like I'm missing a few.
Well, let's do this. We got to do roll call. So we'll bring the meeting together, call the meeting to order, and Mike or Ronnie, let's do roll call.
So before we do that, Mayor Gibson, well, okay, we can go ahead and do roll call, but we also need to elect officers.
Right.
So I'll go ahead and do roll call, and then,
yeah, that was number 3 on my agenda.
All right.
Yeah, I just
got it.
Everybody's
okay. So I will start with roll call.
Audio.
All right. Councilor Fender.
With the controlling guys. Yeah. Any word on Cassie's situation?
She's absent today. Excused.
Right. Commissioner Gaylor.
Here. Present.
She's like, it's a miracle. It's a miracle.
Commissioner Lachlan.
Here.
Councilor Ocholi.
Okay.
With her kids. He's
Councilor Paulson. Councilor Platt.
He's just
Councilor Boehner.
So
Yes.
Commissioner Griffith.
See, he wasn't getting mom's.
Commissioner Marchese.
That means hurtling out the window.
I don't know.
He's here. He's present. Mark is present.
Jumping around on furniture and like jumping on people.
Commissioner Paulson.
I don't care.
Commissioner Petrie.
Here.
Hi, Laurie.
Mayor Gibson.
Hi.
Who was the last one?
You.
Oh, yes, I'm here.
All right, so we just barely have a quorum by 1.
4 o'clock in the morning. I'm going.
Okay.
So we need a motion to elect a chair.
I move that we elect Sam Lachlan, who has done it in the past and has done an excellent job.
Thank you.
Take their eyes off him.
I'll second that.
Who seconded that?
Lori.
Okay.
Okay, let's do roll call for ayes in favor.
All right.
I was having that conversation with Dominic.
Commissioner Gaylor.
Too.
Aye.
Councilor Boehner.
Yes.
Mayor Gibson.
Aye.
Commissioner Marchese. Mark. Mark, can you hear us?
What's one's name?
All right, we'll come back to Mark.
Lucas.
Commissioner Petrie.
Yes.
All right.
Is Mark talking to somebody
Mark
else?
isn't chiming in. That was a vote of 5-1. Mark, can you hear us?
Thank God for that.
He can't hear us for some reason.
You can't hear us.
He's
Mark,
not-
can you hear us?
Mark.
See if we can get a chat going, maybe.
And bones are not that much of a concern, but brain.
Mark, can you read that? Mark. Oh, I have mirror right.
Fine.
Go ahead, Sam. Try it again. He's looking now. Oh, now he's not.
Backwards.
Ah, yes. Mark, can you hear us all right?
You have it, Sam. It's
Is there a
red,
reason
reads well.
The host has got us all muted out because we're past start time.
Hmm.
I don't even know
Makes
if
for good TV, doesn't it?
All right, well, we have a motion and a second for Commissioner Lachlan to be the chair. So far, we have 5 votes with 1 absent vote, with that being Mark. Mark, can you hear us?
I can now. Sorry.
Okay, so there
I'm
was
with
a
you.
motion and a second to elect Sam Lachlan as the chair.
I am in favor.
Okay, so that'd be 6-0 in favor. Sam, you're our new chair.
Okay, let's
Did
get
somebody
rolling.
else just come on? I thought I saw somebody else.
And now we need to elect a budget officer. And this is usually like the staff member, either Mira or I, usually in tandem. Mira and I handle the budget officer position.
Let's get a motion going for Mira and Mike.
I move that Mira and Mike be the budget officer, nominated to be the budget officer. And it would be Mike Weston and Mira San Juan.
And
Second.
Sam Lachlan, I second the motion.
Okay, all in favor? Let's do roll call.
All right. Commissioner Petrie,
Aye.
Commissioner Marchese,
Aye.
Mayor Gibson,
Aye.
Councilor Bayer,
Yes.
Commissioner Gaylor,
Aye.
Commissioner Lachlan.
Aye.
All right, that's 6-0. Mira, am I missing anyone? Any other officer position that we need to elect right now? Okay. All right, that allows us to get moving into our budget.
Okay, Mike, you're gonna do the presentation.
All right, so this is going to be a little different this time around since we're not doing it in person, but you should be able to see the budget on your screen.
We do.
Any trouble, or if I start moving too fast, please let me know. Does everyone have a copy of the budget?
Yes, I have a hard copy in front of me.
Yes.
All right, perfect. So everyone had a chance to kind of read through the budget message, I take it?
Yep.
Where we sit? Okay, we're sitting a little bit less this year than we have in previous years because of the large project that we did on 131st Street and the City Hall building here. So we had a couple large capital projects last year that have kind of, we're seeing the toll of that in the rendering of this budget year. So we go into basically the financial summary. Our beginning fund balance is about 1.5 million less than what we were last year. Again, that's because of 131st Street and City Hall construction. Any questions on the summary? Personnel services are up. Material services are down. Capital outlays are projecting down. Debt service is, of course, going into our second year of debt service. Interfund transfers stay about the same. And then our contingencies are projecting to go up.
I have a
Any questions?
question
Sure.
on that page. Well, maybe I'm jumping ahead. I apologize if I am, but under municipal court, actually it says municipal, so you might want to correct that. The full-time employees is 0.75. Why is that?
Because Sam does a portion of her time in court, and then she does a portion of her time on admin services, as well as permits, building permits, things of that nature. Oh, and she reduced her hours by So Mira, you want to chime in with Sam taking she's working 4 days a week now after,
Yes,
and that's why the 75
Wiley,
is
yes,
put on.
to reduce her time.
Okay,
Okay.
that's fine.
So sorry, my explanation was a little mixed, but essentially she reduced her hours, Sam.
Okay.
Any other questions on the summary page?
No, I think it's clear to me.
All right, we'll dive into the other. Our tax rates stay the same. This is our permanent tax rate set at 1999, continues forward. The change here that you're going to see is the local option levy. Local option levy went from 55 cents per thousand to 63 cents per thousand.
Mhm.
So we're anticipating a little bit of a bump in the amount.
Excuse me, Mike, I'd like to interrupt this real quick.
Councilor Platt is with us.
Can you
Councilor
hear us?
Platt.
Totally.
Hi, Ronnie.
Hello, Dave.
Hello.
Hello. Bear
Okay.
with me. I'm going to try to flip this page here.
Ah, perfect.
Good
Good job.
job.
I'm going to just move my chat windows out of the way so you can see. As you see, our beginning fund balance is a little bit less this year. We're projecting it less. This is conservative budgeting. It might be a little bit more than this at the end, but we're anticipating that we're going to have a reduced amount of revenue this year toward the end of this fiscal year based on the COVID-19 stuff. So we dropped it down a little bit. So our beginning fund balance is a little bit reduced than what we expect. We're expecting our retail sales taxes, liquor, marijuana, those to kind of stay where they've been or even go up a little bit. We're expecting our franchise fees to go down a bit in some of them, but we've already gotten our PGE in, which is a little bit higher than last year by about 20 to 50,000. So that kind of cleaned up some of the negativity that we initially saw in our budget forecast for franchise fees. Passport fees were trending down because our service desk is closed at the moment. Everything else should pretty much stay in line with what we've seen in the past, and I'm just going to keep on going. So you see our total resources down at the bottom in the 4.29. Can you guys see my mouse?
Yeah, Mike, in your summary, you say that the decrease will be approximately 113,000 in revenue and expenditures. How did you arrive at that number?
Through a process of looking at the numbers that we have, taking out the fact that we're shut down for a portion of time. So taking out that percentage on what we would usually make during those times, and then running a reduced percentage. I think we took about 15 to 20% off to knock it down.
Okay. Now, just give everybody a heads up that we have Pride that's going to be coming to us tomorrow. Somebody has background noise going on there.
Yeah, Ronnie, you better mute me because I'm living in a house full of clocks.
Okay, that's okay, just as long as it's temporary. But Pride is coming to us to discuss their franchise fee. And Mike, so far we haven't had anybody else talk to us about this. But can
So I talked to Kristen yesterday about it.
Yeah.
To say what's going on with this. Can you give me a little bit more information? I'm a little uncertain of why this is coming forward. And her response was like, they're not really asking for anything right now. The April franchise fee should be in line. They're still collecting services. What they're concerned about is the next quarterly payment in July will likely be reduced because of the reduction in commercial pickups that they've seen. And so I was under the impression that they do their franchise fee based on the previous year's revenues. And what they do is they do it on the previous quarter's revenues. So in July, when calculate their franchise fees, she's saying that they might see a reduction in how much they collected last quarter. So that would end up resulting in a reduction in franchise fee. And so she's preparing us that it might not be as much as what we would have expected.
So, with that being said, I still don't understand why we should be the ones to accommodate them on this. I want everybody to listen to what I'm saying. Is, to me, if they're having an issue with revenue, there should be state and federal programs to help them with their loss of revenue. And that I don't see King City being in a position to accommodate them on a reduction in their revenue and impact us. I just don't see how that is supposed to work. So Mike, Mir, Sam, maybe you guys need to help me with understanding how what they're going through should create a reduction in our franchise fee.
Sure. So our franchise fee is based on a percentage of the revenue that they generate. So if they don't generate as much revenue, then our franchise fee won't be as much. So it's what she's warning us. They're not asking for anything right now. They're warning us that next quarter, we may see a reduction in the franchise fee based on the revenues that they are able to generate given our current pandemic.
Okay, so
our franchise
that would be automatic?
Yes.
Yeah, it's 3% of their revenue is our franchise. So if their revenues are down, then we would see a reduction in our franchise.
And commercial would be a bigger portion than residential. So they're giving us a heads up that we should plan for that.
Michael?
Yes.
Hello? Michael?
Yeah, we can hear you, Gretchen.
Okay, I have a question. Given the reduction in driving during this period, I was listening to another program, and they were telling cities and counties to expect a reduction in gas tax revenue. Have you taken that into consideration?
Yeah, when you look at the beginning fund balance, we're budgeting $150,000 less than what we would project.
Okay.
Okay.
And that's based on what we expect that we'll lose this fiscal year before we start next fiscal year.
Okay.
What percentage is motel of the top line? Like I would think everything, it's looking like everything's going up except for motel, but how much of that, I know you can't say on the marijuana, but is the motel like only 5% of that number?
Miri, you want to chime in on that?
Which line are we looking at, first of all, so everybody's on the same?
Line 3 on other resources, taxes, liquor, cigarette, motel, and marijuana.
Okay, that's it.
Yeah, for the motel tax, we don't know the percentage, but we know the annual revenue is like about 55,000 for the motel tax, the King City. Yeah.
I would think that one would drop drastically, but I don't. So it's about
we did reduce
only an eighth of that number. So
for the most part, we reduced a lot of them individually. I think the one that we didn't reduce was the marijuana, which we're projecting will go up, and Oregon liquor sales.
Right. By the lines in front of both of those stores and the empty boxes in front of the liquor store, I say you're right.
Now, there was a time period when the liquor store was actually closed. Is it still closed?
What's that, Ken?
The liquor store was closed Has it reopened?
I think so.
Yes, it is. It's they're closed on Wednesdays now, which is a
Oh,
change.
is that what it is? So they're closed on Sunday and Wednesday?
Correct.
Okay, all right. Okay, thank you.
They've also reduced their hours, I think, by 2 hours a day.
Okay, all right, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Okay.
I have a question, if we're done with that conversation. On line 13, referring to court revenues, how are the courts being run right now? Are they?
No, but we're still writing tickets. So
But you have to go to court.
until they come in to see the judge to get their tickets processed.
So that's why you don't expect that number to change?
Right.
Okay,
Eventually they'll have to come in and see the judge anyways.
hopefully this year.
Yeah. Okay, all right, Mike.
Questions on this page here on the resources?
I have another question on line 18, referring to SDC charges. I just have a question. What is it? It's just for residential homes, right? Correct?
Yes, residential homes or commercial development that goes into areas outside of the original boundary of King City. So the way that the SDC is written is the original area of the KCCA, who was basically all of King City back in 1989 when they started going through the expansion, is excluded from the SDC. So all the development that has occurred over the last 20 years is tagged with the SDC for parks. So that's anything outside the original boundaries.
So, and how much per house is that?
It's right now about 3,200. But it goes up every year, Sam.
Right.
And it'll likely go up once we finish all that expansion to the west. So as we look out to Roy Rogers and everything else, there'll probably be a new park assessment that should look at citywide.
So you're anticipating right now just for 20 and 21. I'm aware of about 10 or 11 homes.
Yeah,
Are you looking
about
at
10 houses, what we're projecting. So there might be a couple more. It might be a little bit higher. So if you took your 3,200 and you multiplied it by 10, we're budgeting 20,000. We're figuring we're probably going to get more like 32,000, but we're budgeting conservatively.
Okay, that's the crux of my question.
Okay, good question. Thank you, Sam. And I see Smart is on, so welcome, Smart.
Morning.
Oh,
If
thank
you
you.
look at the park fund, Sam,
Yeah.
hang on, page page 16, Sam.
Okay.
You're gonna see line 6 on page 16 is gonna be the revenue from SDCs, and that'll be right around the 3,200 or 32,000 that we're projecting for 10 homes.
On which line on page 16?
Line 6 on page 16.
Oh, 6. Okay,
Revenue park system development fee.
I had that marked. That was another question. I won't have to ask it later.
All right. And then what you see on this page, page 1, is a transfer into the general fund from that. And that basically covers any sort of maintenance or work that we do out there at the park.
And you can always adjust that up if you have to. If things
Well, as
go
long
up.
as we don't exceed our total requirements for the park fund, right?
Right. Okay.
Any other questions on page 1?
Good question, Sam. Thank you.
You're welcome.
For the record, Councilor Ocholi has joined us. Smart, you're muted right now. Ronnie has to unmute you. Ronnie, can you unmute Councilor Ochoa? Thank you.
Yes, good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Good morning, good to see you.
Please don't mute yourself. I can mute you and unmute you.
Okay, thank you. Ronnie?
Okay.
Ronnie,
Yes, Dave. Yes, Dave.
you can hear me okay. I just wanted to do an audio check.
Okay.
We got you, Dave.
All right.
All right, so we start on page 2 here. We start off with personnel services. So as we start with the personnel services, you'll see that technically we're budgeting down one person. That's going to be Officer Burdette. But we are looking into ways that we can contract with TriMet. We're not budgeting for that yet because we haven't signed and executed the documents to do that. But our plan is that we can contract with TriMet and it'll be budget neutral for keeping one more officers. That give us 12.25. Yeah.
When will we know whether, when will that be settled, Mike, you think?
I think in right around September, August, September, we should be able to put out the intergovernmental agreement, and then Ernie's working on executing that so that when Pat comes in, we are set with moving Burdette or one of the other officers into the TriMet relief until we can actually expand westward, get some more houses under our belt, or get you know, one of the places south of Fisher, or even get Chalice Farms under our belt so that we can actually afford to keep the additional officer.
Okay, so we would stay neutral basically with Pat coming back, and we have the other officer as a placeholder with TriMet, and when that person comes back, hopefully we'll have the funding to be able to have them work full time. Huh?
Right.
Okay.
And then as we scroll down, you'll see our training travel employee. We're taking that down a little bit. Everything else is staying pretty much in line. Contract services is we're trending down as we wrap some of these things up. We've already paid our share of the TSP piece. So the only thing that we really have left out there is the master planning, but we're projecting also to get a bit of a grant from
Mike,
Metro for that.
could you speak up just a little bit, please?
Okay, I'll try without blowing everybody else out. You might be able to adjust the volume on your own computer too, Greg. So any other questions as we go through this? Grant expenditures, we're trending down. So everything else is pretty much in line.
This is Sam. I just have one question.
Sure.
On line 17, the building maintenance and equipment repairs. With a brand new building, I'm sure you have an answer, but you have a higher number there from the last
right.
The last line.
Yeah, hang on one second. We need the detail. It's because we did the janitorial piece. The council elected to contract with a janitorial service to do routine cleaning of the building. And so that's why you see those added costs in there.
So that would be under building maintenance?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, and we knew that it was going to kick us up, but we wanted to make sure we don't have the staff running around trying to clean bathrooms and all that kind of stuff. Now, I guess to that end, I think we're pretty satisfied with the service that we're getting, and they've really stepped up and bring this virus to help us out as well. So do you share that opinion?
Yeah, I mean, they've been great. They're in here twice a week, cleaning the place up and keeping it looking great. I think now they're still coming in on Wednesdays and Sundays just to sanitize everything.
Right.
And keep.
Okay.
I think it's money well spent. I really do.
Well, I'm not questioning the fact that you're spending it. I was just wondering why that number went up. Understandable.
Can we go back to the training, travel, and that piece of it? Does this include, this is for officers and everybody, or what is that category on line 7?
Everybody.
Okay. And we are reducing from last year. What are we cutting? Where's the cut coming from on that?
Well, as we jump into it, you'll kind of see as we go through it. This is the summary, and so if you want to get into the line item stuff, you need to jump back to what, page 5 or so, 4. Page, yeah. So basically, this is everybody. So page 4 shows the city council, where we're cutting about 5,000 out of that. Page 5 is the city manager, where we're cutting, well, that's about the same. Thought we cut out some more on this. Finance and planning about the same. So I think we only cut 5K out of it, but it's, the summary shows more, right? Oh yeah, so it's only 5,000 that we cut out.
All right, that's fine.
And what we did is we just took it out of the city council budget because we didn't spend it this last year.
Mm-hmm.
So we figured we took it down to what we spent in this last year on city council.
Right.
And if we need to adjust up, we'll end up doing like supplemental.
And that was our plan, to not participate in as much travel and those meetings that are costing us money. So I think we achieved what we were out to do anyway.
Right. Yeah, we were able to actually cut that down by almost like 10,000 by just taking that one piece off, because it also had effects on the other pieces as well, as special department expenses.
Okay.
So between those, I think it took it down about 10,000. And then we don't have to buy the iPads this year since we have them supposedly already purchased.
We have them? Where are they?
Supposedly already purchased. Waiting for them to arrive.
Okay, I'm not going to say anything else.
All right. Any other questions on the summary before we get into details? All right. So as we go into details for capital expenditures, sorry, this is still summary expenditures. We have our $100,000 for our loan. Our contingency, we're projecting up over last year, so an additional 23,000, or actually, sorry, 26,000 up over what our contingency was last year. That's important for me. That's the number I look at when I try to budget everything, to make sure that we're trending in an upward manner, and keeping the budget balanced. Here's where we discuss on page, what page is this?
Page 4.
Page 4, sorry. The city council budget. This is where you'll see the reduction in the membership, well, the training and travel, as well as the special department expense that we were just talking about, Mayor. Next one is city manager, admin, office budget. Pretty much the same as last year. As we go through it, we don't see any major changes here. Next is for finance and planning. This is where most of our admin staff are plugged into here. Not a lot of changes on this front. You will see we reduced our contract services by about 150,000 over last year. That's due to the fact that we have a grant with Metro that should cover most of our contract services. And we don't have the $100,000 match that we had this last year with ODOT and the TSP. So overall, we're about 100,000 and change less than what we were before. Any other questions on that? Software, hardware, we don't have as many computers coming in this year, so that's reduced as well.
Mike, on line 15 on that page where it's talking about elections, that cost is for our notices and all of that. This doesn't change if the process for those running for election, will there be any additional costs if we waive the signatures and all that kind of stuff? How is that, will there be any impact to how the election process this year works for our new councilors?
There will be impacts on how it works. You know, we'll need to discuss that tomorrow at tomorrow's meeting on how we want to go about modifying or changing the election process or requirements due to our emergency situation.
Okay.
In doing that, we really probably won't see much from our end pertaining to costs, but we might see reductions on the candidate's end on the amount of footwork or work that they have to do to initially get through the election process.
Okay. Okay.
So I don't think it'll really see much reduction on ours. What we did is we did reduce this number. I think initially we threw some extra money in here because we had talked about in our goal setting session that in special department expenses.
Yes.
So actually, if you see line 12, you'll see special department expenses. And we increased that thinking that we would have to notice or try to get information out, like public information, notice, flyers, things of that nature, to provide information, like public information campaigns on a potential gas tax or for the annexation. So you'll see that on line 12. The elections stay relatively neutral because we still have to pay for. I think there's still elements to the elections that we have to pay for those to go out and signatures to get collected.
Okay.
But we don't necessarily, it's the ballot that we pay for, not necessarily the other stuff. So we have to pay for the public announcements to announce the election is open, and then
and that doesn't change. Okay. All right, I got you.
All right.
Okay.
Otherwise, we're trending down in computer software. Personnel services for capital outlays. So this year we don't have any major capital outlays on the docket for the what's that? Where's that? Element? Right. Well, because we have the website done. So the website's pretty much done. It's just basically Ronnie's time now to keep updating that to see that reduced. For the court, this 29,000 basically services contracted. Okay, so that's Sam's time that gets moved out and into the other one. It goes into police department, the other 29.
Is the judge still getting paid?
Yes, yeah. So that'll be your professional services right here. So he gets paid per month when he comes in, right? So now that we're shut down, are we still paying him? Okay. All right.
We have elected to pay him. We don't have to.
I think so. It's $500 a month.
Okay. All right. Okay, that's fine.
So it's a con. I think it's like an annual contract. We pay him.
Okay.
So
Make him work double time when it's all up.
That's right.
right. Well, he's gonna have a stack of caseloads when he gets back. That's for sure.
Exactly.
Any questions here on building department requirements? Usually these are services contracted out through Clear Company. Go into the police department here. We're seeing a slight reduction from last year based on the fact that, oh, why are
But that, but that,
it's then Pat comes back.
yeah, but that comes back, but that all, and then.
Hang on a second, I'm trying to figure out, because we're still gonna have 7 officers in the police department. Pat comes back, Burdette leaves, we're still gonna have the same number in the police department. I think this year we had extra, oh, because a portion of Sam's coming.
So for current year, we have a in time. Shelby was here.
Mhm.
We budgeted Shelby for this year.
Dean is gonna take that position. 3, 4,
Cody here.
So 1, 2, 3, 4,
5, 6.
5.
But when we budgeted, we did budget 7.
Plus 10. Okay. So it's 6 plus the reserve time. Does that make sense? So the last time we had the 7, because we had Pat still here, but Pat wasn't actually working that much. So Pat was on military leave for that period of time. But we had Burdette here to cover him in that time. Also, we're looking at what the cost of the union negotiations are going to cost, and those numbers are plugged into here on what we can max out at, and still remain and still maintain a balanced budget.
So that new number does include the proposed increases?
That's correct, yeah. The proposed increases plus benefits associated with that are all here.
So it looks like the benefits number went up 10%. Because we had like 50% would have been 258 divided by 515, and then we went up 516 and 314.
Yeah.
You're expecting about a 10% bump in benefits for the union negotiation.
Yeah, almost $100,000. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And that's PERS. That's PERS and health insurance. Those are the things that the employees don't necessarily see in their paychecks, but we have to account for on the back end. And every year it's a 14 to 15% bump on insurance fees. And then there's PERS usually goes up 4% a year. So the cumulative effect is on the backside, substantial increases in the overall budget.
Okay.
So you're looking at, oh, you also have the fact that we bumped Ernie up to chief, and we bumped Brian up to lieutenant with additional pay raises in that.
Okay.
But
And
those
then on line 20, total materials and services, we're actually going down. How do we get to that number from 234 to 195, 830?
The amount of grant expenditures are reduced.
Okay.
And also our vehicle expenses are going down. We're coming into the final year of the lease contract.
Okay.
So we have that final piece, and then I think we have a payment, purchase option into that time. That'd be next year. We'd have purchase option on.
Okay.
Any other questions on the police side? We have the street fund. I think the only only big things to mention here are the SCA grants that we have coming in. That should take care of King Richard and 116th Street, although we probably won't do 116th until but next should wrap up next fiscal year, but we should be able to do King Richard this fiscal year. You'll see this, the SBA grant right here at 100,000. Okay.
Now that one, we didn't lower much on state gas tax.
Which line are we talking about?
Line 6.
Right, we didn't reduce state gas tax.
We're conservative, but I just wonder, I would expect to see that one to drop.
That's what, is that what, was that what Gretchen was talking about? The forecast that it's going to be?
What we're forecasting is that most of these costs are going to be captured before year end, before the end of the fiscal year. So things should be back on an upswing by the time July kicks around. So for the next fiscal year, so we're projecting from July 1 through June 30th. So most of the reductions that we're trying to capture are in our beginning fund balance. Remember, our beginning fund balance we're projecting is going to be $150,000 less in some of our initial revenues from franchise.
Picking up some feedback from somebody. Somebody have a TV running?
And there's some background noise coming from somewhere.
Hey, Mike, with that background noise going on line 17, on the street fund, it shows transfer of SDC funds for the adopted this year.
Yeah.
$20,000. How is the SDC funds being used for streets?
It's not. That's why last year there was a $20,000 transfer in from the park SDC. We had our public works person was in the street fund, so his whole salary and everything was listed in the street fund. Now it's listed in the general fund, and so at that point in time, there's the transfer from the parks went into the general fund to pay that salary.
So that was for the
auditor, oh, not auditors, but our accountant's recommendation was that the public works person should be funded out of the general fund, not the street fund.
Okay. Yeah, that's
what we did is we moved him over then to the general fund to handle that. All right?
Yeah.
Does that explain where it, okay. So any other questions on the street fund as we work our way through? We still have about 34,000 in here for road maintenance. Wave at it.
I have a question on that. Are you spend a lot of money on the new roads, but with is this part of the 10-year road maintenance plan? Is it still being updated?
Yes, so this is more for like potholes or minor street repairs, signs, things of that nature. The key with the street fund is how much we're putting into contingency for next year. Where's our contingency? Hang on one second. Where is it? So right now, what you'll see here under the operating contingency, Sam, line 21 on page 12. Last year, well, we almost zeroed out our contingency in 2017. And then in 2018, we were able to put 26,000 or 67,000 in it. And over the course of this year, we're going to put in another 130,000 or 120. No, it's more than that. It's like 200,000 in there over this year because we're not doing the major capital project this year out of our street fund. And so you'll see that contingency number is going up about $220,000. Do you see that?
Yeah.
Okay. So page 12, line 12. And then that will go to doing a street project in the future that maybe don't have special funds to cover.
Right. That's where I was asking about that 10-year maintenance plan, road maintenance plan, if you're still going with that.
We do. We're still using that to justify what projects we use to pave first. So right now we have King Richard is still on the list to get finished up with those SCA funds. And then 116th Street over here coming in was one that our engineers had called out as in need of some paving in a high traffic area.
Okay.
Any other questions on that? All right.
No.
Move ahead. Most of the other fees and services are staying about the same. We have the small city allotment grant for King Richard, as well as the capital outlay there. So here's your SDC fund for the 2004 resolution and how that works. So you'll notice because we did the large project last year at the park, it was about $150,000. You'll see that our working capital has been reduced by about 155,000. We've reduced the earnings from temporary investments. This would have been revenue generated by the interest as well as like Skyhawk Sports, because we don't know if we're going to be able to do it or not. We were hoping that that number would have gone up, but right now we're projecting going down.
So they're going to do a presentation tomorrow, or we're going to hear from them tomorrow on what their plan is?
The Skyhawks group?
Yeah. I thought they were on the schedule to speak about what they were probably going to end up doing.
They are, yeah.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, so they're going to call and give us an update on it.
Okay.
All right. Park improvements, we're reducing that down. What's left out there is the backstop fencing, dugouts, things of that nature. You'll notice that we already have the mower. Dave has been working on the equipment shed out there. And so for next year, it should just be a matter of minor improvements here and there to make sure that we keep things nice. Other than that, it's just operating fees for the what is it, Brightview? Right.
Yeah, Brightview.
And that's under contract services on the general fund, right? Yeah.
Yeah, and I think they're doing a really good job, by the way. You know, and I actually saw them working on Fisher Road, de-weeding and cleaning up Fisher Road as well. So that was good.
Oh. Good. And then here's our TDT tax. We dipped into this this last year to do 131st Street, which we found out that we might actually be able to repurpose the funds that we spent on another SCA grant, or not SCA, but Safe Routes to School, SRTS grant. And we can use the funds that we've already expended as a match. So our match would be nothing. The application deadline for that is in May. And so we will, yeah, now we just have to figure out what kind of project that we need to move forward on that front, right?
Right.
And I'm thinking if we did something along Beef Bend, but I think that would take Washington County to join us.
You mean we might be able to do the wall? We might be able to do the wall if we have those funds?
No, I don't think the wall will actually help children be safer.
That's away
nice
from
try. You will see that the work. What's that?
I said it would keep pets and the deer into running into them when they're going to school.
There's that. Probably put a deer crossing underneath.
Okay, I won't say more about the wall.
Here has been reduced. And that's because of 131st Street and work we did there, as well as the Fisher Road project. So when you look at the overall balance here from preceding years to now, you'll notice that this fund has been trending downward. I imagine with the growth coming, we should see this kind of turn around. Plus, we don't have any TDT projects coming up. So we'll probably start seeing this start climbing again. Any other questions on this one? Local option levy, bear with me. Better at this. It did pass this last November. It passed at 63 cents, so we're good for another 5-year period. We're expecting this to kind of come up. We haven't seen the jumps on some of the things that we're expecting yet, but we are projecting them over the next year. One of those
Mike, on the TDT rate adjustment, that we had the WCCC meeting, and that was part of the presentation. And I think what is going to happen, it was scheduled to increase coming up, but I think there's going to be a 6-month delay in any kind of adjustment to the TDT, just because of everything that's going on.
Okay. I think for the most part, the way that we came up with this is from the number of units being proposed over the next year. All right.
Okay.
What was that number that they were using? Do you know, Ken?
I think the proposed was like 3.6 or something along those lines.
Because right now it's 84.58 per unit is the number that we have. So is that going to go up, or are they saying it's going to not go up for a period of 6 months at least?
Probably won't go up, but they're taking a look at it and determining whether or not they need to move forward with it. And I'm pretty sure it was a 3% increase, 3 point something. But right now, they're taking a look at whether they need to delay the increase or not.
Or last year. Okay, well, the number we're using was last year's rate.
Right.
So if it is going to go up 3%, it should just be additional from what we have.
Okay. but no decision on that yet. Just found out about that yesterday.
Okay. Next is the local option levy. Most of this gets transferred into the general fund. We're projecting a slight increase on that based on the fact that it's on, we have an increase on the rate, tax rate from 55 to 63. Everything else pretty much stays about the same. That's about it, right? That's it. Any questions, concerns? Do we need to go back through anything? Any particular line items or discussions?
No, I guess the only thing that, I mean, for you and Mira, not knowing how long we're going to be in this situation with revenue not coming in for passports and building permits and all, at what point do we start getting concerned about the impact of lockdown and versus our budget? I mean, I guess the way I'm asking you that if this thing runs through the summer into September, is that a concern, or is it pretty much it's not going to be a huge impact, or it could potentially be that $113,000 that you guys kind of forecasted? Was that keeping in mind, or based on maybe this lasting another month? So what? How does that figure in? I guess I'm concerned about the long-term effect, and what do we do?
Yeah, I think the big one for us is going to be franchise fees or passport fees, right?
Right.
So the passports pay for a portion. What page is it? First page.
Way up close to the top front.
Yeah. So you'll see the passports right here at 60,000. So
you reduced it.
Yeah, we did reduce it. So I think what we're budgeting for is a loss of revenue through the month of July and picking back up as the year progresses. You know, I think at the same time, $80,000, that's a fair chunk of change. I would say if they don't start making a recovery, we're going to have to start adjusting something. So right now well, at the end of January, we were at 46,000 in passport revenues for the year. So we figure through February and even into March, we probably had additional. So we were probably close to $60,000 before we shut it down. But yeah, I think our concerns are going to be reductions in the gas, reductions in franchise fees. Well, I don't know. I think if people are at home, we're still going to collect from most of our franchise fees, water, power, sewer. Those are all still be there.
Yeah, those are stable, I think. I think you're right.
But the gas tax, I think we'll see a hit on, and I think passports we'll see a hit on. Our concern really is if we start seeing a lot of delinquent properties or delinquent taxes. If people start going upside down because they're on unemployment and not paying bills or anything else, and then they're evicted, and then we lose they don't pay their taxes or something to that effect. That's where we would really suffer.
When would we see that kind of hit? I mean, say for instance, if this goes through and then people are still going to be trying to recover, that money is not going to start coming in right away. So when would we see the impact of, say, property taxes? When would that be noticeable to us?
Yeah, come the fall, like November is when we first start seeing it roll in. and then it carries on through like February. So most of the time, like our operating contingency gets us through from about July through like November, you know, and then our tax base or our tax revenues start funneling in at that point in time. So there's a period of time for those 4 or 5 months there where we actually float off of the revenues generated either previously or in contingency.
Okay, so I guess the only thing I have to say is that are we tight enough right now so there won't be any devastation when that number becomes apparent to us? I mean, to be as tight as we possibly can right now is in preparation for the unknown.
Yeah.
Are we really as tight as we can be right now? That's the only question that comes to my mind.
Well, you know, we went through this a few times and tried to knock it down as much as possible and eliminate some of the excess things that we might not use given our circumstances. And in doing that, we were able to eliminate about $100,000 of spending out of the budget and flip the contingency from a -70 to a positive 26.
Okay.
You know, unfortunately, one of those was an officer position in order to try to make sure that we would have it. But at the same time, we want to budget conservatively given the circumstances that we're seeing in the markets.
Right. Anybody else have any concerns or suggestions? And also, we probably, do we have any public comments? I think we need to go through that.
Yeah, I was wondering about that with the public comments. Is there anybody there that has any comments on the meeting?
No, Ronnie, if anybody is on?
I don't have any, I don't have anybody registered for the meeting for public comments at this time. Give it about a minute before you close the meeting or move the meeting.
I would say they can, if they want to comment, they can type in the chat window.
Yeah, they can type in the chat window, send me an email, which is in the public newsletter, and or call in to the line provided on the agenda.
Okay.
So do we, so that's item number 5, public comments. Ron, you said you wanted to give that about a minute.
Yeah, that's what Ronnie said.
So there's a couple ways you can do it, folks. You can either raise your hand in the menu on the right-hand side, or you can type in the chat room that you have a comment.
The 30 seconds.
We have it set for June. Okay. It'd be May 19th.
While we're waiting for public comment, anybody else have anything to add or open for discussion? Concerns?
I think my biggest concern is, like you were saying, worst case with this coronavirus and everything and things shutting down, is where do you cut? How do you pay the bills?
Yeah.
That's
well,
not,
if we start seeing huge hits like that, then we're gonna have to look at staffing reductions, things of that nature. Right now, we haven't gone there because we're trying to keep everybody fully employed. And but if we get to the point where people start going under and houses start becoming vacant and our tax revenues aren't there,
right,
then we have to adjust accordingly, which is going to be unfortunate.
Now, there's been some conversation about funding and relief funds for cities, you know, through the federal government or state, if these kinds of things were to occur, but is really not clear on how that process is going to work, what kind of funding will be available, and how do you qualify for that type of funding. I know that there's been some conversation about it, but I have not seen anything specific. Mike, Gretchen, I know you guys have been on a lot of these calls. Have you picked up on anything that might be an indication that there'll be relief for us as a city?
We're still talking about it, but right now, no, I haven't seen anything.
Mm-hmm.
Hopefully we don't have to reduce the staff that would help us figure that out.
Yeah, that's true.
Well, I think it's safe to close the meeting for public comments. The next thing on the agenda was
I have not received any public comments at this moment.
Okay. So we'll close that part of the agenda. And item 6 was a public hearing for state revenue sharing funds. Does someone speak? Does someone speak?
That would be May 20th at 2 p.m.
May 20th at 2 p.m.
Oh, okay. Oh, it's a date we set, huh?
Yeah. So that'd be before the city council.
Okay.
And since we're all doing these teleconferences, we're trying to shoot for daylight hours.
Yes.
So the final thing on the agenda was the approval. Were we going to do that by a roll call on the vote?
Yeah.
Okay.
So there's a recommend for public approval.
Right. So we have to have someone. They have to be approved and seconded.
We need a motion, right?
Need a motion?
Is there a motion to approve the budget?
I move that we approve the budget that has been presented
For FY 2020-2021.
for fiscal year 2020 through 2021.
Okay. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, who's somebody going to do the roll call for the vote? Or
I'll do that right now.
thank you.
All right, Councilor Boehner. Councilor Boehner,
Can't hear.
you want to just do a thumbs up or a thumbs down? Can you do a thumbs up or a thumbs down, Councilor Boehner?
I think she's doing a thumbs up, but we can't see her thumb.
Mayor Gibson.
Yes.
Commissioner Marchese.
Yes.
Commissioner Petrie.
Yes.
Commissioner Gaylor.
Yes.
Chair Laughlin.
Yes.
Councilor Ocholi.
Yes.
Okay. Councilor Platt.
Yes.
And one more time, Councilor Boehner.
Does Ronnie have her muted?
She is not muted. I don't know what's going on with her speaker or her microphone.
Well, it doesn't show that she's muted, so I don't know what's going on.
All right.
I'm not even seeing her picture. Oh, there's her clocks.
Watch out, it's clock
All
time.
right, so we have a 7. So motion passes 7. And I can't get a thumbs up or thumbs down from Councilor Boehner.
She turned the clocks on. That was her yes.
Put your thumb in front of your nose. We can see your nose. There you go.
There you go. All right, thumbs up.
All right.
All right, got you. All right, so that'd be 8-0. Thank you. We'll move the budget on to the City Council for approval on May 20th at 2 p.m. virtual conference like today.
Okay. Okay.
Oh, yeah, to adopt the budget. Yep.
Now, listen, you guys, I appreciate everybody participating in this. I know that this is new and different, and we have our little bugs, but thank you for helping to make it work. It's much appreciated. We will get through this, and I want everybody to stay safe and do your personal distancing and all of those things that need to be done. I made a mistake when I got the delivery of my package from Officer Cody. I reactively shook his hand, and that was a mistake. I should have instructed him to keep his distance and not shake his hand, but it was reaction, and I failed as a leader to make sure that he knew how important that was. So I'm
We're all going to get coronavirus, Mayor.
I need to apologize to him and to everybody else that I cannot afford to make that mistake. I need to make sure that we all follow the rules and get through this. So I put him in jeopardy and also me and my family. So that's the way I have to look at it and not let that occur again. So I'm an example of what it takes to be able to get through this as safely as we possibly can. Okay.
I have a question on that.
Yes.
Is it mandated that it had to be printed and delivered? Because I was just going to print it out on my own, you know, or have it up on the screen. And I thought, oh, that's nice that was delivered. And then I wondered if you had to.
That's a good question.
Yeah, you know, I think for our purposes, we just wanted to make sure everybody had solid copies of the budget to review. You know, when you're looking at numbers, you're going back and forth between different pages.
Yeah.
Having the old paper copy version is really handy, you know. It just, I know for me, if I'm trying to figure out summary versus detail, and I want to know what that summary is, I have to flip back to get to the detail. And then if you don't have that ability, it makes it really challenging to take a broader look at everything. So
I was thinking I should have had a choice. Do I need it printed? Or are you just going to print it yourself? And I would have just printed it myself. But being delivered, and I didn't have to.
If there's no legal responsibility to have this stuff delivered, electronically is absolutely the way to go in this time period.
Right.
So, I mean, I could have very well printed out. Ronnie had the document on the website that we could print it out through his email and all of that. So, but this was a one-shot deal. I don't think there's any other scenario where we're going to have delivery of a document like this anyway.
I think overall King City's done an excellent job with this situation we're in, and the way the park was closed, and even the basketball hoop was taken down, which was a good idea, Mayor. And I just think you're doing all the right things, and I'm really impressed.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate that. We do have some citizens who are concerned. Mike, we got another email from a person who thinks that there are too many people walking around the 55 and older community. And that email I received, and they're asking for the city to post signs to, you know, it's a public street and we need to depend on people to do, I'm calling it personal distancing, but we can't stop people from walking around. People need to get out and about. So I'm not sure. I think, and my response to it was that, Mike, I think we need to come up with a standard statement for these kinds of requests that the city cannot take on a position to prevent people from walking around, you know, and it's not something that we can really address. And Lori, this is part of the KCCA HOA member who is concerned about the well-being of a parent who lives in the KCCA area, saying that there are just too many people walking around and making it unsafe for that family member.
Right, yeah. She copied us in too. So we also got the email, so.
And then
Like
there's
to
also
add,
a degree of
I'm a
personal
daily walker.
responsibility there.
daily walker, and people are just being great about distancing
Yeah.
in the street. People, if you're walking on one side, you know, you can see somebody coming from the other side. People just switch just like it's choreographed.
Yeah, that's
And
what I see
no
too.
one is coming anywhere close to 6 feet from another human being.
Right.
So
That's
people
what
are
I,
being
that's what I've witnessed too. Is people really keeping their distance.
Remember, you know, Sam, we walk in the park and we see people shifting position, you know, getting off the path. If there's people walking, you know, walking on the grass, and that's what we see. So, you know, whereas I can understand some people being concerned about it, I really believe that we have to depend on people doing what, making good judgment and good decisions. And I just don't think it's realistic for the city to be responsible for posting signs and things.
And Mayor, I even stood on the other side of the street when I talked to you the other day, because I heard
I know. We were on two sides of the street talking.
Yeah, because I heard you like to shake hands, so I was keeping my distance.
I got to retrain myself, you know, and boy, did I get chewed out by my wife, because listen to this, when I was doing it, it was always already documented on my Ring doorbell. So she reviewed it, and boy, did I get chewed out. Video evidence.
Well, I even thought I should have had him like drop it on the planner that I shouldn't have taken out of the hand. Like I said,
Well, what I did was,
and then I will come out, but he handed it to me, so I took it rather than saying drop it down. And you know, I wondered about that even.
Yeah, I know.
Obviously, when that paper isn't 6 feet long, so our hands were closer than 6 feet, even though I didn't shake his hand.
Well, he had on gloves, and what I did was I took it to the garage, I disinfected it, you know, just because that's what we do with everything before we bring it in the house. Groceries and everything else, we use the sanitary wipes and all those kinds of things, even before we bring groceries in. So that's what I did with the document and left it out there. So, but it's just the kind of, we're learning and we're trying to do the best we can, but we just need to protect ourselves and the people around us. So just wanted to give you guys a heads up on that. Okay, team.
Some of those people complaining about the walkers are the same people that complain about the parking, the speeding. And, you know, I think it gives them, they are only happy when they have something to complain about. So we need to celebrate that we give them that opportunity, but realize that they will not be happy unless they have something to complain about.
I understand. I understand. There's no doubt about it.
And it's always the same ones.
Well,
you know, as you know, I always would know who's the employee that's going to come to my door and complain.
Right.
And I could write it down before we ever had the event.
I understand.
So, and that's what I always said. Well, we just have to celebrate.
But yeah, but as a city, you know, we need to figure out how we respond to these in a consistent manner. And
I agree with you.
To do with this, what's the standard response that the city can't take responsibility? It's a public street, and we have to encourage people to use good judgment. That's all we can do, I think. So
yeah, I don't think gating the streets is. I can't believe they're even talking about that.
Right. Well, that's the way some people are. So, did we officially close the budget meeting out?
No, I think we need to. Do we need to do a motion to close the meeting?
I think we did.
I think we close with a recommendation. We already have a recommendation to approve. We just need a motion to adjourn, and I think we're good to go.
Okay.
So is there a motion to approve and adjourn the meeting? Well, we did approve it.
Yeah, we
did. We already approved. So I think public comment, everything's closed. We're ready to.
Correct. So is there a motion to close the meeting?
I'll move that we close the meeting.
Second? Is there a second?
This is Viva. I will second that we close the meeting.
It's been motion and second to close the meeting. And
all in favor?
All in favor? Aye?
Aye.
Aye.
Does that work?
That works for me.
Motion. Okay, the meeting is closed. Thank you.
All right, you guys. Thank you
Thanks,
so much.
everybody.
Have a great day. Okay.
Stay safe.
All right.